We often look for answers in mysteries, don't we? That sense of closure when everything just clicks into place, the who, the why. But sometimes, the moment you think a case is solved, that solution, it just pries open a door to something. Well, something far worse. Today, we're doing a deep dive into 4 specific files, 4 really horrific cases where the initial truth investigators found. It just exposed a much darker, lingering horror underneath. You'll see how finding the killer or identifying the victim sometimes just unravels into this awful psychological void. The real why remains terrifyingly out of reach.
Yeah, and what you really need to get is that these aren't just tales of, clever cover-ups succeeding. They're about cover-ups failing. And in failing, revealing something much more disturbing than whatever the original crime was thought to be. Okay. The attempts to make things look simple, like an accident, or faking an ancient artifact, they just crumbled under forensic examination. And that examination, it pointed to a kind of calculated cruelty that's, well, it's hard to explain.
Let's start back in 2000. Pakistan. This case initially sent shockwaves through the archaeological community. Police intercepted this huge black market deal, $11 million for what looked like an incredible find, a mummy in a sarcophagus. And the claim was staggering. This was Rudagun, daughter of the Persian king Xerxes.
And that was the first big shock. Mummification, everyone thought, was strictly Egyptian, a Persian princess mummy. That changes history books.
Right. So immediately you had governments, Iran, Pakistan, arguing over ownership of this world-altering discovery.
So the first step was basic. Is it real? Scientists got involved, tests were run, and pretty quickly the mystery of the artifact itself was solved. It was fake, a modern forgery.
How did they know?
Well, the reed mat she was lying on, less than 50 years old. The inscription wasn't even ancient Persian. It was translated from Greek centuries after she supposedly died. And the clincher, modern LED pencil marks. Inside the coffin, someone had traced things out recently.
Okay, so disappointment then. A scam. An elaborate one, sure, but just criminals trying to make a buck.
That was the initial thought, that they'd found a real Egyptian mummy and just dressed it up, basically. Made it look Persian to drive up the price.
But then the forensic work shifted. It went from looking at a forgery to investigating a homicide.
Exactly. Because when they actually examined the body inside, it wasn't ancient at all. Forget 2,500 years ago. The analysis showed she was a modern woman. Died probably around 1996, just 4 years before she was found.
Wow.
And the way she was mummified, it wasn't careful preservation. It was rushed, done probably within 24 hours of her death.
And how she died. It's brutal. This woman, she was tiny, only about 4'7". She was murdered violently. Her back was broken with some kind of blunt object. Her entire spinal column snapped in 2, neck broken at a 90-degree angle.
It's horrific. And the mummification, like I said, crude, done fast. But here's the really chilling detail, the one that points towards the motive behind the disguise. They removed her heart.
Which Egyptians wouldn't do.
Never. In Egyptian practice, the heart was crucial, left inside. Removing it here, it suggests destroying evidence, hiding identity. This wasn't ceremony, it was a cover-up, using this ancient disguise for a very recent, very brutal murder.
So they solved part of it. Not an ancient princess, a modern murder victim. But the truly terrifying questions remain completely unanswered. Who was this woman? And who killed her? Why go to such incredible, bizarre lengths to hide her death this way? It just hangs there, unsolved. Let's shift now from that kind of historical deceit to something more immediate. Deceit on the water. August 2017, freelance journalist Kim Wall. She arranges an interview with this inventor, Peter Madsen, on his homemade submarine, the UC-3 Nautilus. She boards the sub. Madsen returns the next day, alone. The sub sinks about 30 minutes after he gets back. Kim Wall is missing. And
Madsen's story starts shifting almost immediately. That's the first red flag. Calculated lies right from the start. First, he claims he just dropped her off safely on land. Then, oh no, she actually fell overboard. Then the story changes again. There was an accident on board, she died, and he buried her at sea. Out of respect, he claimed.
Out of respect. Police, of course, were highly suspicious. They figured, correctly, he'd sunk the sub deliberately to hide evidence. 12 days go by, and then the truth starts washing ashore, literally. Kim Wall's torso is found, bottom of the harbor, and it's immediately clear this wasn't any accident. He was deliberately mutilated, head and limbs removed. Forensic analysis found multiple stab wounds, too. Possibly to release gas, prevent floating.
And there was a piece of metal attached to weigh it down. This wasn't panic, it was planned disposal.
So Madsen has to change his story again. He finally admits dismembering her body, but he still insists her death was an accident. Now he claims a heavy hatch fell and hit her on the head. He just panicked afterwards and disposed of the body.
Yeah, But the forensic evidence just completely tears that panic story apart. Inside the sub, investigators found her hair, her blood, traces in the toilet area suggesting he tried to clean up. And then there was his computer. This is deeply disturbing. It contained numerous videos, graphic videos, of women being tortured, killed, decapitated, and the methods in those videos. They mirrored the specific injuries found on Kim's body. This wasn't a sudden panic. It looked like the acting out of violent fantasies.
And the final nail in the coffin for his accident story. When they eventually found Kim's head and limbs, her skull had 0 signs of fracture, no blunt force trauma, the heavy hatch story. Impossible, it just didn't happen.
Right, so he changed his story again, one last time. Claimed it was carbon monoxide poisoning. The horror here isn't just the murder, as awful as that is. It's the cold clinical calculation. The dismemberment, the disposal methods, the constant stream of lies. He was convicted of murder, yes. But he never actually admitted to murder. He never told the truth about her final moments.
So even though he's behind bars, the absolute truth of what happened on that submarine, it remains hidden behind his calculated deceit. A solved case, but an unresolved horror. Okay, our third case.
Yeah.
This one takes us to Poland, 1999. And the initial discovery, it's one of the most gruesome imaginable. A barge working on the Vistula River. Its propeller gets tangled. And what it pulls up is the skin of a human being.
Just the skin.
The skin of the torso.
Yep.
Of a 23-year-old student, Katarzyna Sawada. It was removed meticulously.
Meticulously. How so? Experts said it showed almost surgical precision. Neatly cut at the neck, the thighs. The only parts missing were her face, arms, and nipples. It wasn't like hacking a body apart. It was like someone intended to preserve the skin itself, like a suit.
And medical examiners found signs she'd been tortured before she died.
So the horrific possibility is she might have been skinned alive.
God. Because the crime was so bizarre, so specific, police initially thought they had a lead. There was another local case. A man, Adam A., had killed his father and actually wore his face as a mask. A real-life Leatherface situation.
Right, so they thought, okay, maybe this is a copycat killer, inspired by that, or maybe movies.
Adam A. confessed to killing his father. But he absolutely denied having anything to do with Katarzyna. He was adamant.
And the crucial evidence backed him up. DNA found on the skin suit. It wasn't Adam A.'s.
So that theory, that quick explanation, it collapsed. The real killer was still out there.
And the case went cold for almost 20 years.
Yeah. Investigators did learn a few things about Katarzyna. Shortly before she vanished, she'd changed her look, dyed her hair blonde, lost weight. It suggested maybe she was meeting someone new, secretly, perhaps someone she was involved with romantically. It pointed towards her likely knowing her killer.
Then finally, a breakthrough. Nearly 2 decades later, in 2017, police arrested a man named Robert J., 52 years old, and his background. Former military service where he performed autopsies.
He had the skills, the precise anatomical knowledge needed for that kind of removal.
Exactly. The leading theory now is just chilling, that Robert J. was the person Katarzyna had fallen for, maybe secretly met, that he imprisoned her, tortured her, and did that, skinned her, maybe even tried to use the skin for something before dumping it.
But it potentially gets even darker, doesn't it, based on what else they found?
It does. Police psychologists looked at Robert J.'s profile. They believe he fits the archetype of a serial killer. And they found a notebook, his notebook.
With names.
Names and addresses of many, many women. It fuels this terrifying possibility that Katarzyna wasn't a one-off horrific event. She might have been just one victim whose case got solved, revealing a potentially much larger hidden pattern of violence, unsolved cases possibly linked to him.
So solving the who in her case just opened up the possibility of countless others.
Horrifying. Okay, our final case tonight. This one confronts us with something different. Not so much forensic contradictions, but audio evidence that just doesn't square with the official story. This is Henry McCabe. September 2015, Minnesota. Henry had been out drinking with friends. Around 2 a.m., he gets dropped off, but at the wrong gas station, not where he intended to go. That's the last time anyone who knew him saw him alive.
Then, just 28 minutes later, 2:28 a.m., his wife, she's in California, gets a call from his phone. She records the last 2 minutes of that call.
Okay.
And it's incredibly disturbing.
What's on the recording?
You can hear Henry. He's screaming in clear agony. He says repeatedly that he's been shot.
Shot. Okay. But there's more, isn't there?
Yes. Besides the screams, there's this other sound. It's hard to describe. A strange, guttural, almost like a growling noise.
Yeah.
Unidentified. Then there's a moment of silence. And after that, you hear another voice, a male voice, clear as day, say, "Stop it. Stop it." Okay, So a recording capturing screams, claims of being shot, weird noises, another person's voice, sounds like a violent encounter.
Exactly. The terror in that recording is palpable. It clearly points to some kind of struggle or attack.
But then, 2 months later, Henry's body is found in a lake, about 4 miles away from that gas station where he was dropped off. And here's the major contradiction. The autopsy finds no gunshot wounds, no signs of physical violence at all.
None. So the coroner rules it accidental drowning. The official cause of death cites his intoxication level.
An accident, despite the phone call, despite him screaming he was shot, despite the other voice.
Right. And this official ruling, it ignores basic logic. Look at the timeline. He was dropped off at 2 a.m. The call was at 2:20 a.m. That's less than half an hour. For him to get from the gas station to the lake, 4 miles away in that time, he would have had to walk incredibly fast, nonstop.
Which someone heavily intoxicated couldn't possibly do.
It's pretty much impossible. So how did he get there? And why did he scream about being shot if he wasn't? Who said, stop it? What was that growling sound?
The official ruling offers no answers for any of that. It just asks you to accept.
No.
That a drunk man hallucinated a violent attack, somehow teleported 4 miles, and then just fell into a lake.
It feels like false closure. It takes the solved fact the body found, the ruling made, and just papers over the terrifying, unexplained horror captured on that audio recording. The truth of his last hour remains a complete mystery.
So 4 cases we've looked at today. A forged mummy hiding a modern murder. A submarine accident masking calculated mutilation. A copycat killing revealing a potential serial killer. An accidental drowning contradicted by recorded terror. In each instance, the simple answer, the initial explanation. It just didn't hold up. It crumbled.
And what was left behind was something darker, more complex. Calculated cruelty, deep psychological issues, motivations we just can't fully grasp.
These stories really force you to confront an uncomfortable idea, don't they? Yeah. That sometimes the truth doesn't bring clarity or peace.
No, sometimes the truth is just more terrifying. It reminds us that some answers maybe aren't fully knowable, leaving that definitive closure just beyond our reach. The human capacity for depravity can be boundless and often completely illogical.
Think about that thread of denial running through these, the elaborate historical lie with the mummy. Peter Madsen's constant shifting stories, enabled by tech, the attempt to pin Katarzyna's death on someone else, the official dismissal of Henry McCabe's recorded terror. Sometimes digging for the solution just unearths a horror far greater than you first imagined. We really appreciate you joining us for this pretty intense deep dive today. We hope exploring these shadows has given you something to think about. If you want to hear more stories like these, more explorations into true crime and the unexplained, please consider supporting us. You can help the channel grow by hitting that like button, sharing this deep dive with others who follow these kinds of cases, and definitely by subscribing to the channel. Horror Docs, thank you for listening. Until next time, stay safe and keep watching the dark.